WKVI.
It's time now for Where Are They Now? A look back at more than a half century of local high school sports coverage on Kankakee Valley Broadcasting's WKVI. Today's program is brought to you by Osborne's Mini Mart in Knox. Now let's meet one of the local high school sports figures from more than 50 years of WKVI sports and find out where are they now?
Well, as we look back on more than 50 years of broadcasting high school sports in the Kankakee Valley here on WKVI, our guest is Pete Bradley, a 1991 graduate of Knox High School, and we call this segment, Where Are They Now? So, Pete, where are you now, and what are you doing?
I just moved back from Tennessee about a year ago today, and I'm living back in Knox, and back just about a year now. So, 2 kids. My son Zane's 24, my daughter, and I've got 2 grandkids, Jack, Bradley.
So, going back to when you were a high school athlete at Knox, boy, you had quite a career. You were a 4-year letter winner in both cross country and track. You were all conference, advanced to the semi-state and country twice in 1 week. And
I tell you, there was a crazy story behind that. So, in marching band, a lot of times we had to show up before school started and have practice. So, my mom always told me to walk with your head down, and if you find change, pick it up. And she always told me that if you find a heads-up penny, that's a sign of good luck. And that morning, I was out there in the parking lot at the high school, and I down and saw a heads-up penny, and I stuck it in my sock. And the thing was, I went out after school that day and had a meet, and I broke the cross-country record. And I've been chasing that thing for about 4 years. And I got home that night, and I got undressed to take a shower, and I heard something hit the floor, and I'm like, oh, man, I ran with that penny in the bottom of my foot in my sock that race, and I totally spaced it off. So 2 days later, I put that penny back in my sock, and I ran again, and I broke it again. And then I get home after that meet, and I made the mistake of chucking it in a pile of change that I had in my dresser in the bedroom, and I lost the lucky penny. Oh. That's the story about what happened that week. Yeah, it was a great week.
I guess. And you had a lot of great weeks. I mean, in track, you qualified for the regional and the state and the 1600 several times. I think you might still hold a 1600 record at Knox.
Still have the 1600 record, and I still have the old cross-country record, because the old one, we used to run the sand hills right there behind the VFW, and then they did away with that. And it was explained to me, just like when Fred Kim ran, because it was a different course then, that, if you break a record on a course and then they use the course, that record's forever sealed. So that one I had, and then, of course, the new cross-country record, I still have that one now, too. So it's I was surprised that it's held out for this long. I would love to coach a kid that can go out and break it. I mean, that's my goal, is to always show somebody a better way of doing things and now technology.
Well, let me ask you this. You already talked about the excitement of breaking that record twice in the same week, but other than that, of all the meets that you participated in back in the day, besides the one you just described where you had that great week, what's the one that sticks out in your mind more than any others all these years later?
There's probably 2, and one of them I won, the second one I lost. The first one, it was in 8th grade, and that's when kids were really involved as a team and cheering athletes on and teammates. And it was, we were undefeated, Culver was undefeated, and at the end of the track meet that day, it came down to the mile relay, and they stuck me on the anchor. And so the race starts, and I'm looking next to this kid from Culver that's going to run against me, and the kid's about 6'4", and I'm like, I got my hands full, and they were ahead of us. When he got the baton, they were a quarter of a lap ahead of us. But back then, the whole team would run just about alongside you and cheer you on. So this kid, when I get the baton, he's a quarter lap ahead of me, and I wound up catching him at the end and beating him, and we won undefeated that season. My second one, I was at Bremen, and I didn't play football in high school, and I always thought Gene had it out for me because I didn't, but I was a scrawny runt. And we were at Bi-County and, running against a lot of schools. So I'm in the 800, and they draw for positions, and I'm the rabbit. So, if you know the 800 and there's a staggered start, I'm all the way in the front on the outside. To me, it's the worst place to be. But I trained myself to never look back to see if someone's close, because that shows a sign of weakness. So the gun goes off, I take off, and after the first lap, I can cut in, and I cut in to the inside lane there, and I'm still in the lead. And I was in the lead the whole time. And at the very end of the race, I saw something in the corner of my eye, and I leaned, and so did this individual. And it was a photo finish. They had to take some time and see who won it. And come to find out, that was a state champion that I just about beat that day. And Gene Skirvin came over that date, and he told me, he's like, that's the gutsiest race I've ever seen any kid run. He goes, I'm really proud of you. So him and I, we've talked several times after that. Both of those are my two favorites.
Of course, you had some kids pushing you in your high school career as well that helped you a whole lot, didn't you?
Absolutely. I had Brad Shively, and there was Mark Young. We just had a lot of guys, and we cheered each other on. It wasn't competitive, and we really wanted the best, for each of us at the end of the day.
Let me ask you this, Pete. Growing up in Knox and in that area, who were some of the people who were like your role models, or people who helped you be so successful in athletics?
The first one I have to thank is Kenny Wagner, my neighbor. He was the one that got me into running. So he was a wrestling coach, and he was very what's the word I'm looking for here? Competitive, I guess. And we played a lot of basketball in the alley. And so I noticed at nighttime he was getting off of work at co-op, and then he was putting on some running shoes and taking off jogging. So the one day I stopped and I asked him, I said, where are you going? He says, well, I go over to the track every night. And we both live 2 blocks from the middle school and Cinder Track. He's like, if you want to run, meet me here, tomorrow night. So Mom got me a pair of shoes from Toto, where a lot of kids did back day, and we didn't have a lot of money. And so I joined him, and I ran with him over there, and I ran a couple laps, and I had to stop, and Kenny just puffs his chest out, and he's chirping at me, and he knows what buttons to push, and he's like, just start walking. If you got a cramp, bend over a little bit, push in where it hurts, and after that, put your hands over your head, open up your lungs, and when you get your breath back, start running again. And I did that week after week. And it got to the point where we would run over to the middle school together, and then we were jogging back together. So he's like, okay, so tomorrow night, meet me here. We'll jog over, and whoever stops first is the loser. I said, okay. So we go over there, and Kenny stops first. And so I got to give it right back to him, and he went home, and I came back home about an hour later, and he said, tell me you weren't running the whole time. I was like, yeah. He's like, how many laps you do? I said, 24. He says, you ever heard of cross country? I was like, I'm not running across the country. He's like, no, it's a sport. They have courses. So he's the first guy I have to thank for getting me into it. And then my family doctor, Dr. Howard Henry, amazing. To me, the godfather of running here in Stark County. And being my doctor, him starting to follow me, through newspaper clippings and such. He says, he was old school. I went in for my school physical, and he tapped my kneecaps and, for a reflex, and they both kick out. He'd say, how you feel? I said, I feel great. And he's like, he always got excited. He says, let me hear that heartbeat. And so he put the stethoscope on me. He's like, 40 years a doctor, and you still have the slowest heartbeat I've ever heard in my life. He goes, stick with it. Ray Carey was another guy, ran with Doc a lot. And so Ray was a big inspiration. And I also have to thank my two coaches, Mark Wagner and Rob Kruger.
We're talking with Pete Bradley, a 1991 graduate of Knox High School, and we'll continue our conversation after this timeout.
Need a game plan that has your day covered from tip-off to the buzzer? Osborne's Mini Mart in Knox has you covered. Whether you like to start out with a caffeinated full-court press or control the tempo with a Subway breakfast flatbread, Osborne's Mini Mart has what you need. Don't get trapped in the corner with an empty stomach. Call a quick timeout and get 2 hot dogs. Visit Osborne's Mini Mart in Knox at the corner of US 35 and Highway 8 East to guarantee you win the day.
Our guest is Pete Bradley, a 1991 graduate of Knox High School. Let me ask you this. Pete, you played a lot of sports in high school. What did you gain from being a high school athlete that has helped you in life?
I would say the first thing is discipline, commitment, and to not only learn how you can push yourself physically, because once you break that point, it becomes mental. And I really surprised myself on, my legs have really took me places. I started running in the 8th grade because I was a scrawny runt. Like I said, I played football 6th and 7th grade year, and one of the fastest kids on a team, but I didn't get a lot of playing time. So after my running with Kenny Wagner and I started running, I showed up the first day of practice, and Mark Wagner says, "Son, where have you been?" And then he just a lot of, like I said, a lot of commitment, a lot of dedication. The days that you're tired, you learn to show up, and that transpires into your job force. When you work, there could be times you wake up in the morning and thinking, I can't do this, and you tell yourself, you've done a lot harder than this. So, get dressed and go to work, son. So, yep, that's I would say those are the two things.
Finally,
I'd say also respect for the other athlete too. I was a person that I had rivals, but I've been friends with every one of them since. I was a person, if I came in first place, I stood at the finish line, I shook everybody's hands, or if somebody beat me, I would shake your hand out of respect and, say, hey, thanks for, giving me one heck of a race.
Well, you made your mark around the whole area. I think you at one time broke the course record, of course, at Knox, but you also broke the Bremen course record, the West Central course record, the LaVille course record. So you knew a lot of athletes around, and a lot of schools were very familiar with you.
I did, and actually, and I never asked what the course record was. I just went out, and sometimes it would just be me against the clock, and Coach Wagner wouldn't. He would stick with me. He's like, keep it up. You're doing all right, and finish hard. And I did. And after several meets, to say, hey, we just, they had their head hung. We just thought we'd let you know that you just broke our course record. And what a surprise! It was like Christmas. Every time I heard that. And then I've seen some of these coaches 20 years from now, and of course I'm built different than what I was back then, unfortunately, but as soon as I say my name, they're like, oh yeah, I remember you. Like, man, you were tough. So the day I broke the mental record, we were up at a school, if they had about Wheeler, or somewhere up there by Valpo, and their coach came up to me and he says, hey, they just asphalted a new track. The times are coming across pretty quick, and if there's any record that you want to break, this is the track to do it. And Coach Wagner says, what do you want? I said, all of them. He said, well, pick one. So I said, I want that mile record. I said, it's been haunting me for years, and I went after it. And Coach Wagner gave me the splits, and when I heard that last lap, and I was up a few seconds, and I took off, I was like, I got it, So it was a very exciting day.
I guess. Finally, Pete, and I know you've done some coaching at the lower levels in various sports, but what advice do you give to some of those young athletes that might be out there listening to this? What advice would you give them if they want to have the kind of success that you had?
Put in the extra work. That's, to me, is ground zero. You know, you see these kids wrestling, and the kids that start out on one-on-one wrestling, you know, at a young age, they really seem to be successful. Besides my coaching, there was no internet or anything, so I read a lot of Runner's World, and I took notes, and I tried different techniques and different workouts, and I was constantly doing things. Sometimes before school, you know, I'd run an hour before even class started, and the swim teacher at the time, Mrs. Center, she would let me in the swimming area, and I would run the stairs up and down. I'd go to the middle school, and I would run the bleachers. I would run sand hills, sprints. I tried to be as adverse as I could. I was one of the faster sprinters, but I was never really put in those races. But I knew I needed that for the kick at the end of my race, and then I also, you know, wanted to do distance. So I tried to be as adverse so they could put me anywhere they needed, and I think I could get the job done.
Thanks so much for taking time and visiting with us and reminiscing about some of the really glory days of Knox High School sports. We appreciate your time, and we appreciate all the excitement you provided for Redskin fans back those many years ago.
Thank you very much, Harold. And if any of those athletic directors are listening, I coached at Knox junior high basketball, cross country, and track for 2 years, and I've never lost as a coach. I've had several parents ask me about applying for different jobs at Knox and other schools, and with my schedule right now, I'm available. So you let me know, and I'll make it happen.
And you're undefeated as a coach.
Never lost as a coach. 3 seasons. 2 basketball seasons, 2 track and cross country seasons, and my team has never lost. I've never lost as a coach.
Okay, athletic directors, did you hear that? Our guest on Where Are They Now has been Pete Bradley, a 1991 graduate of Knox High School. Join us again next week on the Saturday Sports Line for Where Are They Now?
Where Are They Now? A look back at more than a half century of high school sports coverage on WKVI has been brought to you by Osborne's Mini Mart in Knox.
Join us each Saturday morning on WKVI for the Saturday Sports Line and worldwide on WKVI.com.